Hello and welcome to episode 97 of the Clean Energy Show. I'm Brian Stockton.
I'm James Whittingham. This week, Elon Musk says full self-driving beta will expand to Canada in the next 2 to 4 weeks. No word if that's Earth Weeks, Mars Weeks, or Elon Weeks.
British Petroleum, known for their Deepwater Horizon oil spill disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, have said that they expect their electric car chargers to soon be more profitable than their gas pumps. BP intends to take those profits and figure out some other way to ruin the planet.
Chevrolet is slowly replacing all the batteries in their Chevy Bolt cars to prevent fires. Once the repair is complete, owners get a sticker declaring the car is safe. The sticker includes a QR code which you can scan to find out how many babies are on board and if the owner's other car is a Porsche.
And the Elon Musk of India is making high-performance scooters for less than the cost of my mail-order e-bike. Does this mean you'll be able to do aerobics indoors in Mumbai without coughing up a diseased lung? We'll find out.
All that and more in this edition of The Clean Energy Show. Well, hello, Brian, in the midst of a Omicron surge. I don't know. You feeling optimistic or what?
Well, it's not the best, but yeah, because it went up fast, it should come down fast as well. So hopefully we'll be between waves fairly soon. But for me, online teaching is now going to continue for 2 more weeks is the current plan. So, my last semester of teaching, basically the first month and a bit is online, and then we're hoping in person after that.
And then you retire.
Mm-hmm.
You lucky bastard. Yeah, my partner said to me, why can't you be retiring? And so now there's pressure on everybody. So I have nothing to retire from.
Oh, man.
Our hometown here, we talk about how obscure our hometown is, but there's actually a lot of stories going on in international clean energy press about what goes on here. And one of the reasons is because that cold snap we were talking about the last couple of episodes and the Tesla heat pumps having a problem. Well, apparently we're famous. We're more than just the home of the Clean Energy Show. We're also the home of broken Teslas because it's so bloody cold here. But yeah, they're working hard on it. Finally, we have some word from Tesla. Are you pretty satisfied with that?
Well, we'll see. So the temperature is going to drop again tonight to minus 30. So there has a software fix that's gone out. And but we'll see tonight, I think, as it hits minus 30, if that actually worked. And some of the cars need hardware replacements. And I don't know. It remains to be seen what all needs to be done.
So there's a theory out there that if the software was in place, the hardware wouldn't break. So the software might solve the problems for a lot of people, but not necessarily. But it's still unclear. But I'm sure they'll get it worked out. It's just a really horrible thing, Brian, to drive cross country in minus 30s and not have any heat. I mean, I feel horrible for the handful of people who had horror stories.
No, and one thing I wanted to mention, because, you always hear people say that, we can never switch to clean energy because it doesn't work in the cold. But I wanted to point out that when it's minus 35, minus 40, the natural gas furnace in my house has difficulty keeping up. Like, we put in a high efficiency furnace 10 years ago or so, and when you have a furnace that efficient, it doesn't blast heat like the old ones did. It's more conservative in terms of blasting heat. So if your house is not that well insulated, even in a natural gas furnace can struggle to keep up.
We also are in the news locally, internationally, in financial corners for a biodiesel plant getting installed, but 2.5 kilometers away from yours truly. Really looking forward to that. And I ask, why, Brian? Why would they do that? I mean, there's headlines out this week that says that diesel has been surpassed by battery electrics in Europe already. And if you don't look at the trend lines, if you don't look at where things are going, you can't make any decision like that. You have to see where things are going. And you can't assume that it's going to stop. All these incumbent energy people think that, yeah, that's pointed in that direction, but it's just going to go flat from here on. Nothing's going to change. They just don't get it. So now we have to put up with a biodiesel plant, and I'm not a big fan of biodiesel. We should be making bio air fuel because we'll have to have that for some time, possibly, if we don't use hydrogen or something else. But biodiesel, the thing about biodiesel is that you plant a large crop over a very large area of land, and that sucks the carbon out of the air. And it supposedly offsets the emissions from the diesel when you do burn it in a vehicle or whatever. But that land would be used anyway for other crops. So is the planet benefiting? And is the planet benefiting because it's not used for other crops, that food prices go up? So there's a lot of bad things about biodiesel. If you guys have any thoughts on biodiesel, give me an email, cleanenergyshow@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we need to get away from this idea of, carbon offsets, or yes, it's true. It would suck the carbon out of the air, but if you're just burning it again, we need to just move on to things that just capture the carbon and don't burn it.
Yeah, burning bad. We can make some things with it for a while, I say. Put it in a big pile in Florida, big trash heap of plastic in Florida. Maybe Florida's not the best place because it'll blow into the ocean, but somewhere. Utah. No, Utah's beautiful, actually.
Plus, you're expecting to smell this at your house?
Yeah, when the winds are from the unusual direction of the east. And yeah, you know when bad weather's coming because you can smell the refinery here. Hey, there was a popular YouTuber out there called Out of Spec Reviews. His dad, you probably watched some of his car reviews, but his dad tried to buy a rear-wheel drive Ioniq 5 from a dealership 3 hours away because they're hard to get, even in the States. Phoned them up and said, yeah, I'll sell it to you for MSRP, right? And he says, okay, but I got to drive it first. So he comes down, drives, spends the whole day getting there and back, and gets there. The sales manager's not there. It's another junior sales manager. Says, not only are they not going to sell it to him, but they want $10,000 on top, and he made no apologies. None whatsoever. $10,000 over MSRP. And he says another dealer was willing to pay him $5,000 premium on top of what the normal wholesale price would be just to get it on his lot so that he could make an extra $5,000. Brian, they can't make EVs fast enough, especially the good ones.
Yeah.
So, a couple of weeks ago or last week, I talked about the Honda Clarity being sold out. I was mad because I went looking for it as an option for me to replace my leased Prius. And it turns out that they're permanently sold out. I didn't realize that they had discontinued the Honda Clarity in all forms.
And this was a plug-in hybrid, right?
Plug-in hybrid, and there's a fuel cell version as well. And it's kind of an odd-looking car in a way, but it had a crap load of range. Maybe I could pick one up on the used market or something. I don't know how many. They didn't sell very many. It's actually ridiculous to think that they would develop these cars and not even try to sell them when, because it takes so much money to develop them. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, so Chevrolet, we've talked about this before. They've got their Chevy Bolt EV, which they've shut down production of it because they've had to rejig the batteries because the batteries have unfortunately been catching on fire. So they've had a massive recall. They're starting to replace the batteries under warranty for the Chevy Bolts. And they're giving you a little window film sticker to put on your car once the repair is made, because we've reported in the past that certain parking lots don't want a Chevy Bolt parking in there because they're worried that they're going to catch on fire. So this way you can apparently scan the QR code that's on this thing and it takes you to the GM website or something and says, hey, this car has been approved. It will not catch on fire. So hopefully parking lot attendants know how to use a QR code and they will, allow you to park in their parking lots.
This seems like a good news story for James. And that is because if they're going to such trouble to say this car won't ignite, maybe I'll get one cheap, one of the refurbished ones.
No, I think that's a solid option for you. Maybe not the best for road trips because the charging isn't maybe fast enough, but
yeah, it's going to be terrible for road trips. Very difficult, actually. But as long as I can get to the city where my son's going to school, because that's kind of important. Who knows? We may never make that trip anymore, but we were making a lot of them when he first went there. It just seems important that we would be able to get to him, and there's no fast charger now except for Tesla.
No, that's, I guess either they've got to build another one or you got to wait for Tesla to open up their charging network to other cars, which, will happen slowly around the world.
What's this about a study that says combustion cars are a lot more likely to catch fire.
Yeah, so, GM has gone through this horrible thing, of course, with some of their Chevy Bolts catching on fire. But even with that, even with these battery fires, Auto Insurance EZ, a insurance broker in the U.S., pooled together all of the government statistics and found that traditional combustion cars are as much as 100 times more likely to catch on fire than an electric vehicle. It sort of depends on the vehicle segment and whatnot. It's not all 100 times more, but even if it's only 10 times more, that's a massive, massive difference. Combustion cars catch on fire all the time, but I don't know. We just accept that.
Combustion cars are 100 times more likely to catch on fire than EVs.
To combust. Because they that's what they do, Brian. They combust. Yeah, I've seen combustion cars catch on fire myself. And there was one a couple months ago, right? I was driving my kid to school, saw one burning. Brian, I want to do a deep dive on Ola scooters because we've talked about them before. If you're a longtime listener, they are basically there's this Elon Musk-esque guy. Well, he's saner, I would say, much saner. But he's got big picture ideas for the environment. And he wants to build this mega factory, which he has, and produce 10 million two-wheeled scooters per year. Let me give you some backdrop. This is Ola Scooters. The factory is built. It's got 10,000 women working at it, which is weird. You would never have one gender working at a factory in Canada or North America, right? In the United States. Yeah, it's strange.
Or in the Western world. But he wants equality, so he's giving them the boost and apparently not getting sued by anybody. So there's 10,000, there's only women working there, which is a fascinating side note and something that perhaps makes you feel good about buying them. They're only selling the Pro version now, and they have, like Elon and Tesla, lots of back orders and lots of delays, which is frustrating people. So this is a scooter. And we call them scooters. They look like mopeds, but mopeds are actually slow and used to have pedals, which is why they call them mopeds. But this is a scooter that you sit on, and you should wear a bicycle, like a motorcycle helmet. They go 115 kilometers an hour, Brian.
Wow.
My e-bike goes 32, and I get nervous. I go down a hill at 50 and I'm scared poopless. 115. Brian, can you guess how many people die every day in India on two-wheelers? Can you have a guess?
A couple of hundred?
Couple of hundred. You're very close. 6 people an hour die on electric scooters in India.
Electric scooter, or probably gas scooters too.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. And that's excluding bicyclists and pedestrians. So that's 144 people a day. And I watched a review of one of these scooters on YouTube. Holy crap. It was like watching an edge of your seat action movie. Like, is this guy going to make it? And he's just this guy who's taking a scooter for a review. But, there's people coming at him at equal speed the other way that are literally brushing clothes with him as he goes the other way. And he's dodging in and out traffic. And this is normal. You people in India, what's wrong with you? How could you live like this? It's not safe. And most of them aren't wearing helmets. In fact, there's entire families on these things, Brian, cruising down the road without helmets. And this is the middle class. This is what people do. They don't value life like we do. There's no Ralph Nader of India.
So it's better, of course, if all these switch to electric, because a lot of these are very polluting kind of vehicles.
Yes.
But it's not necessarily going to solve the problem you're talking about. It's still going to be dangerous.
It's dangerous as hell. By the end of this podcast, when we say goodbye, 6 people will have died.
Yeesh.
It's incredible. And hopefully they're not listening to this podcast while they're doing it. Although, if you had to go to the world, I would like to be listening to the sound of our voices. I think that's a comforting way to leave the planet. So they're trying to get 10 million per year, Brian, and that is an awful lot. They're not making them now, but they're looking to make, that's about 5,000 a day, I think, but they're making quite a few already, and they're ramping up production. And like Tesla, it goes for a while. And these suckers, Brian, here's the thing. Here's the headline. They cost less or about the same as my mail order e-bike. This is a transportation for a family. Okay, this has technology in it. It goes 115 kilometers. It's supposed to go 180 in range, but they really only go about 100, according to reviews. But still, and you put entire families on them. It's an important thing because in India, it's like half the vehicles, almost half are two-wheelers, It's a big deal. So if you can come in with a really cheap one that cleans the air, it's great. And everybody, just like a Tesla, you can have your own profile, your own rider profile. And it's also like a Tesla keyless. Here's a clip.
Now I'm going to show you something really cool that we've built. So watch me closely here.
Hi, Bhavish. Bye, Bhavish.
So you see, this scooter senses when I come closer and it unlocks itself. And when I walk away, it senses that I walked away and it locks itself.
You don't even have to lock it. It's that techie. It's even got speakers built into it. So you can play music or sounds. You can you customize the sounds you want it to make. The reviewer I watched, though, didn't make it back to his home base and he ran out of juice. And so he had lunch somewhere. He was mentioning all the Burger Kings and McDonald's. Sorry, India. We apologize for that. And he got about 15 kilometers back and charging over a quick lunch. So they take about 6 hours to charge at home. And there's a mobile, like Tesla, it's like a mobile service. Can you imagine if you had mobile service for your e-bike when it stopped working? Well, these guys would come by for the same money or less than you spent and fix it again and again. And they even travel 300 kilometers to like the small towns. There's multiple reports of them doing that. So they're going to make this charging network, this high-speed charging network all over India, which makes sense because there's so many people assumably going to buy these. And during the review, this guy stopped and helped a combustion scooter get going again because it had broken down. So you have the same advantages with the e-scooters. One thing I noticed from getting into this deeply, Brian, is that people enjoy riding scooters. Do you think you would enjoy riding a scooter?
Well, it's a bit too dangerous for me, but I like the idea.
I would go out on a Sunday morning when the highways are empty and just let it rip. Or, it'd be fun to rent one in the mountains or something if it wasn't too busy, just as a touristy thing to do, I think, and really take in the sights. He was going through congested traffic quite well, like you would on a bicycle, so that works well. That might be one reason why people choose scooters over there. But you also had to do some off-roading just to get onto paths and things. You don't have to pay tolls. So 40% of all the pollution in India is caused by vehicles, and almost half of the registered vehicles in India are two-wheelers. There's tens and tens of millions of them, Brian. And two-wheelers emit less greenhouse gases than cars, the combustion ones, but they have more dangerous particulates like lawnmowers, right? So there's more bad things to the air quality, and air quality is a serious issue. So the S1 Pro, there's two models. The S1 Pro is basically the only one they're selling now. It is 0 to 40 kilometers per hour in just 3 seconds, which is enough to make your teeth go into the back of your throat. 0 to 60 in 5 seconds, 115 kilometers an hour top speed. They have over-the-air updates, so they're still releasing features and fixing things like the battery gets hot at that speed. There's a 3-year battery warranty and 2 levels of regenerative braking. This is remember, this is not your e-bike. This is an actual thing for the same amount of money. You're getting all this transportation-y electric stuff, and cruise control is coming. Customizable sounds. Unlike Tesla, there's not going to be any physical stores. No, unlike Tesla, there's just not going to have any physical stores, so you buy them online. The battery is almost 4 kilowatt hours, so that's 7-8 times the size of my e-bike. Now, my e-bike battery costs $350 Canadian, so that'll be $2,500 worth of battery that you're getting for like $1,000 after rebates. US. So the whole thing costs 1,700 Canadian if you translate it to Canadian dollars. 1,300 US and closer to 1,000 US after the incentives, which vary by state. So 6 hours to charge at home with 750 watt chargers. That's about a fifth of what my car charges and about a tenth of what yours does. The Ola Hypercharger network will charge to 50% in 18 minutes. You can book your service in the app. They can come by the same day. Can you imagine? 300 kilometers going to a small village to fix your e-bike for free. That's amazing. You can control things with the voice, like, hey, Ola, play some music. Can you imagine doing that with your e-bike? So, yeah, it's just the thing is, it's a decent bike. It's got problems that they're working out. Okay, I expect they will work them out. But to think you can get that for $1,082 plus the money that you'll save on gas is amazing. Because they are making so many of these and they're going to saturate India, I'm sure, very quickly, they should have battery swaps like the Chinese company does in Taiwan and other places. Because I was thinking, if you have so many of them, if you did a battery swap, it would work really well.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that Gogoro in Taiwan because there was a report. Electrek had a good story this week. And this company, Gogoro, they've now got 2,215 stations where you can do these battery swaps. And we've talked about battery swaps before, and NIO, the Chinese car company, is doing battery swaps for full-sized cars, which is a much more involved process, and I'm not sure that that's going to be worth the time and effort.
I don't get that.
No, but for a scooter, it just makes such sense. It's just this one thing that you pull out, this sort of long brick. And so, yeah, they've got 2,215 of these battery swap stations, and that's only slightly less than the number of gas stations in all of Taiwan. So this year, they expect to have more of these scooter battery swap stations than there are gas stations in Taiwan.
And my guess is a hell of a lot easier to put up one of these swap stations than it is a gas station. And you can take it away and there won't be any environmental damage done.
No, every time they've got to get rid of a gas station, it's such an environmental cleanup nightmare.
Yeah.
But no such issues with this.
So I've heard they're at 7-Elevens. But anyway, I'm excited about the ambitions of Ola and their founder, Bhavish Agarwal.
Today, we are announcing Mission Electric with the goal that after 2025, no more petrol two-wheelers will be sold in India. This is a call to consumers and to industry to truly, truly commit to electric. Doing this is certainly not going to be easy, but I believe that together we can and we must. The climate needs it, the world wants it, and our country definitely deserves it.
This is the Clean Energy Show.
All right, Brian, Reuters reports that BP is saying that, you know how they have EV chargers at their gas stations? They're saying that their EV charging stations will soon be more profitable than gas pumps.
They're, of course, spending a lot of money to deploy all these chargers, so it's not like flip a switch and suddenly you're making money off of these things. But they realize that, yeah, the margins are going to be better on these electric car chargers. And I remember hearing that years ago when I was a kid, that gas stations really made very little money on the gas. It's just, a few cents per liter. That gas stations, it's a very competitive business. There's gas stations everywhere. So, they're always on slim margins. And then, they sell coffee and donuts and firewood or whatever. It's like a movie theater where, you pay for your ticket, but they make all their money off of popcorn. But so it sounds like EV chargers is going to be a more profitable business. And of course, it takes a bit longer also to charge your car than it does to gas up. So you're more likely to go in to the gas station and buy a coffee or a donut or whatever. So that whole business, I think, is really going to shift to much more of an experience kind of thing. Whereas now it's just get in and get out of the gas station as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I might even buy a slice of gas station pizza or something, I dare say.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully they'll up their game in terms of, the quality of food, but...
I think my gas station serves chicken, and I just cringe. Like, how long has that been sitting there? Fried chicken. So
we have a gas station in town that sells sushi as well, and I've never braved it.
Well, weren't you going to? Didn't you mention this a long time ago on the show, and you were going to try it for us?
I don't know, but I never tried.
You should go get some just before we do the podcast and do it live. Just give us your real impressions as you eat, because I don't do sushi. So the traditional fuel margin at best at petrol station is about 17 cents a gallon, or what's that? That's 4 cents a liter.
4 or 5 cents a liter.
Roughly 0.4 cents per kilowatt if you convert the energy to from gas to kilowatts. So that's nothing. 0.4 cents per kilowatt. That's nothing to do better. How much are they charging you for Tesla in Canada?
Yeah, it's like, what is it? 40 cents if it's above 40 kilowatt hours, and then 20 cents per kilowatt hour if it's below. You pay more when it's faster, but it's $7-8 for like a full fill up.
These guys would get their their electricity cheaper than you and I would, because they're corporations, and that's usually they have
wholesaler.
I never thought, Brian, that would be that profitable. And I always thought we'd have to kind of subsidize our charging stations. But what happens if big companies like oil companies suddenly realized, hey, then they'd be popping up everywhere, and that would solve one of the key EV adoption problems, is the amount of charging stations everywhere. So that's
but also how they've got to, like I say, tweak their business a little bit, where it's going to be a different experience. So on the one hand, they're lucky, like they already have all these properties that are perfect for EV chargers. They just have gas pumps on them, so they've already got the properties, they've already got the locations. But they've just got to tweak things around a little bit in their business model, because people aren't just going in and out as quick as possible anymore.
So they're going to sextuple their charging points by 2030, and that is the word I keep trying to say on the Clean Energy Show.
You just like to say sextuple.
Yes, whenever possible, and it's not frequently possible, so there we go. So, Brian, there's a report out that plug-in electric vehicles pollute more than advertised. That is PHEVs. From Electric, a new study on fuel consumption by plug-in hybrid electric vehicles found little in the way of benefits. These vehicles do not permit any environmental improvement, energy engineer Mark Muller said, one of the authors of the study. He told that to RTS Radio. It's a climate target con, and it's a consumer con. Another study provoked Greenpeace to call PHEVs the car industry's wolf in sheep's clothing. In testing conducted by Emissions Analytics on a fully charged battery, a BMW X5 and a Volvo XC60 and Mitsubishi Outlander emitted 28 to 89% more CO2 than advertised. This is like Dieselgate all over again.
Yeah, so it probably has to do with how the testing cycle works. Right. So because you can plug them in and run on battery, they end up with a cleaner rating than the actual real world use of them.
So on an empty battery, they emitted 300 to 800% more than official values. Yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it.
That's a lot.
Your e-pipe. When driven in battery charging mode, which could become more common as motorists. But explain what battery charging mode is. If you have a plug-in electric vehicle, you could say, I want to charge my battery up with my gas engine. So the electric motor is turned off, and the engine works as it normally would, plus more, because it's turning a generator. Basically, it's turning the motor to charge the battery. So that would be the least efficient way of doing things. So if you're going into the middle of the city, where, say, London or somewhere where you have to turn off your engine, you're going to drive and produce that much more emission. So yeah, it's bad. 12 times more than their official ratings. So
this is going to affect you, James, because we keep talking about your lease is coming up on your Prius. You're going to have to buy a car, and, plug-in hybrid is one of your options. So what are you going to do now?
I'm probably just going to drive it in EV mode. I mean, that's the idea. That's the dream, right? If I got a plug-in Prius or something, it would have 40 kilometers of range, and that would do the commute, right? Or the daily commute. And but I'm not crazy about that, Brian. I don't think that, because in my wife's case, she actually does do driving. And one thing about the Chevy Bolt is that it's kind of small, and she puts in baby seats in her car for her job as a social worker. So it's you kind of need a little bit of extra room to do that. But the Chevy Bolt's a good car, so maybe we would rather have that than not have anything, than have a bloody combustion vehicle. So yeah, look to sell me a Chevy Bolt, someone. Hey, it's time for the Clean Energy Show Mailbag. And Brian, this is the point of the show where I remind people, coming up later in the show is the lightning round. That's where we speed through the rest of the week's headlines in clean energy. But first, let's dip into the mailbag. Who's this from? It's from Julia in Iowa, the United States, for those of you not familiar with Iowa, and I don't see how you couldn't be. It says, hey guys, I love the show. You know, Brian, everybody starts that way. And I feel like, do you really love the show? I mean, it's okay to be tepid about the show. It's okay to be neutral or modestly enthusiastic about you. You don't have to love the show.
Well, I don't know. I like getting empty praise.
And they know that. Our listeners know that. So they fill us with empty praise every week. I don't know why, but okay. You can say, I'm satisfied with the show, or your show is barely acceptable. You know, you could say that and then go on with your email. She says, I'm currently listening to the most recent podcast and heard you mention the Washington Post piece about people stuck on the highway in a snowstorm near Washington. Thought you might be interested in this perspective from someone who was actually driving a Tesla. And spoiler, you guys were right. Being stuck in electric car is better in an EV. Did you read that, Brian?
I did, yeah. So this is that giant traffic jam near Washington, D.C. recently. And people were stuck more than 24 hours. And, of course, lots of people, making comments that this would be a disaster if it was EVs. But you and I are smart, so we thought it's got to be the opposite. And Julia, thank you so much for contacting us. She's here to tell us that it's true. It's better in an EV. And
Julia, I love your email. There. It works both ways.
And I will say, too, it's, when I drove to Vancouver in my Tesla last summer, the last 2 hours was a massive traffic jam going into Vancouver. And it wasn't freezing cold. It wasn't a blizzard or anything, but 2 hours of stop and go traffic, again, way better in an EV because most of the time it's just sitting there, not using any energy. And then you creep ahead 5 feet, you use a little bit of energy for that. But think of all those gas cars that would have just been running continuously for that whole 2 hours.
Yeah. This happened in Toronto, I think, yesterday. It wasn't 24 hours, but people get stuck and then the snowplows can't get through. There's a big, big snowstorm in Ontario. In fact, if you're listening to us in the northeast United States, you might be familiar with the Saskatchewan Screamer. That is also how we are locally making the news this week. Because
they're blaming our weather systems for their nightmares.
I've heard of Alberta Clippers, but not Saskatchewan Screamers. Saskatchewan Screamers. I can't even say it. I'm from here.
Who do we sue about
I don't know.
This is not right.
So apparently a Saskatchewan Screamer is an Alberta Clipper that forms in Saskatchewan. It's a fast-moving winter developing storm. Anyway, we apologize. So Brian, last week when you called winter bikers insane, I knew we'd get mail, and we did. Dedicated, not insane listener here. He says with various laughing emojis, I have an e-bike since late December. It's like cross-country skiing, not everyone's sport or mode of transportation. By the way, I like cross-country skiing. The city grooms both trails, though. They do? They groom the trails. Okay.
I guess so.
The actual ski club does the ski trails, I will point out. I was glad you're doing this show and taking on the TikTok petrols, too, says John. Thank you, John. Eric in California was aghast at our story on Brussels Airlines operating 300 empty flights to maintain their airport privileges, and he asked, 3,000, pardon me, that's ridiculous. And he asked, wouldn't it have made more sense for the airline to calculate the total cost of operating 3,000 empty flights, including fuel, flight crew, plane mileage, and maintenance, and offer that to the airport at half the amount?
Well, this is where we can learn things from, the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, we changed the rules for a lot of things because this required a massive organization of everybody. So, it just doesn't make sense to keep using these same rules. Surely there's a way to get around this so they don't have to operate empty flights. It's ridiculous.
We love to hear from you. Contact us at cleanenergyshow@gmail.com. That's our email. On Twitter or TikTok, our very popular TikTok channel, Clean Energy Pod. Go on there and argue with petrol heads. Because I don't want to. I hate confrontation.
No, somebody has to.
It does not work with me. I get, I'll have to take a tum or something. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel for special features. We're also there. Leave us a voice message at speakpipe.com/cleanenergyshow. Brian, I have an exciting segment this week.
Wow.
It involves wind. So I'm going to call it wind news because there's so much wind news this week that I made a special segment.
That's a catchy name.
Just going to add some blowing wind sounds. Brian, it's a huge week in news. A bigger week in news we have not had. Let's put it that way. New York and Scotland are going big. In New York, the power purchase agreement agreed with the New York State finalizes the terms under which Equinor and BP again, will provide generation capacity of 1,260 megawatts of renewable offshore wind power from Empire Wind and another 1,230 from Beacon Wind 1, and they're making substantial investments in the infrastructure. And, you know, it's not just the wind turbines that they're putting up. They're building launching stations in the port. So this is how wind produces jobs. They're actually building a terminal on the port to have a staging area and assembly for the industry, as well as operations and maintenance base for the projects. Money, 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 jobs, jobs, jobs. Come on, people.
And this is all offshore, of course. And, you know, a place like New York doesn't have a lot of extra real estate. So offshore wind makes a huge sense.
But this
there.
is a big deal, Brian, because this is something like 2,400 megawatts. And you know what we have? We have a 10 megawatt solar farm that went online here where we live. 10. This is 2,400, 240 times that size off the grid in one announcement. Yeah, so this is jobs, and it's coming. It's Brooklyn and Southern Brooklyn Marine Terminal. The partnership will also invest in the port of Albany, making it America's first offshore wind tower and transition piece manufacturing facility. Fantastic. Finally, wind is coming to the United States. And in Scotland, Scotland has announced historic offshore wind auction. They are auctioning off 25 gigawatts of offshore wind developments. And Brian, that would double the UK's existing offshore wind capacity, and the UK is a world leader in wind capacity offshore. So that's huge. In one announcement. One. This is nuclear level here. 17 projects with a combined potential generating capacity of 25 gigawatts has offered the rights to specific areas of the seabed, which they are prime for development. Lots of shallow and bedrocky seabeds, my son tells me, around there. So it's perfect for offshore wind. Unlike here off the coast of BC, where it's deep and sandy. Developers are giving commitments to invest in the Scottish supply chain. So yes, more jobs. They want the supply chain to come from Scotland. So it is not, this is what we've been talking about during the pandemic, is green jobs, green economy. Go green, create green jobs, and boost that economy. The projects are expected to secure 1 billion euros in supply chain investment for every gigawatt of capacity proposed, and they will also generate 700 million euro in revenue for the Scottish government. Sweet! When the government starts bringing in money from not oil, wind. That is something I haven't heard of before, and something, you know, this whole thing's going to tip, and there's so many people who have no idea what's going on. That's why you listen to the show, right? All right, people, it's time for the Clean Energy Show Lightning Round. As I said before, this is where we clean up the rest of the week's headlines quickly. Where are we? We're not doing too badly for time this week. I'm amazed we got through all that. From Drive Tesla Canada, Germany's coalition government reversed course and will now include hybrids in their 2030 electrification goal. This is not good news for reasons we have discussed earlier on this show. Previously, the government committed to having at least 15 million fully electric passenger vehicles on the road in Germany by 2030. Now they're saying plug-in hybrids are okay.
We've already decided they're not okay. Germany, get your act together.
From the New York Times, when Arnold was California's government, he set a goal of 2006 of putting a million solar panels on a million roofs or something like that. Yeah, remember that? That was kind of my beginning of the modern green era. Is like, wow, things are starting to happen. Do you remember that feeling when you heard that million roof solar project ambition?
Yeah, well, Arnold Schwarzenegger was a very progressive governor in terms of energy.
He was, and he still is somehow. Skeptics said it couldn't be done, but with bipartisan support in the state legislature. This is, you know, Arnold wrote an op-ed piece in the New York Times, and he's saying, because we talked about the California's threatening solar now on rooftops. So yeah, they did reach that 1 million goal in 2019. The state now has 1.3 million solar rooftops generating 10,000 megawatts of electricity, enough to power 3 million homes, and more are being added every week. Roughly 2/3 of those rooftops are on houses and businesses. The rest are on government buildings, interestingly. I wasn't sure about that. Bollinger has dumped their plans for electric consumer pickup trucks to focus on commercial vehicles. Bit of a surprise. It was one of those startups in getting into the electric game.
Yeah, and they had some interesting pickup trucks that they were going to sell. They looked great, really interesting design, and I was excited for them. But yeah, it turns out making electric pickup trucks is maybe a bit too difficult. So yeah, they're going to return any deposits. So people were putting deposits on these vehicles. They're going to give up on the pickup trucks, but their technology seems well focused towards commercial vehicles. So that's what
I wonder if they
on.
looked at all the other trucks that are coming online and said, well, we're going to have to up our game. Tesla's rumored to be upping their Cybertruck game to keep up with the competition because they're taking so long. But you have to say that their announcement has got other people going. I'd bet on that. But commercial vehicles is huge because, when somebody buys commercial vehicles, they buy thousands of them sometimes, right? Delivery vans, mail vans, all these things can be electric. And there's got to be a huge market there. BMW doubled their plug-in car sales in 2021. Volkswagen doubled their EV sales in 2021. So this is doubling.
Yeah, it's good news. They both have increased their capacity quite substantially. So kudos to Volkswagen and BMW.
And Exxon, the evil bastards of the petrol empire, sets a 2050 goal for net zero GHG emissions. But that's for operations, and that's what our local refinery here says it's doing, is they're going to capture carbon, and it's going to work perfectly. Honestly, we think it will. It's not been done before, but the ambition does not include the use of its own oil when they're burning stuff. The stuff that it makes gets burned, and that's bad. And also the mining of that stuff and shipping of that stuff not included. First new Tesla Model Ys are spotted at the Gigafactory. How do you feel about that, Brian? Do you think it's actually making them?
Yeah, in Texas, it sounds like they're making a few test vehicles, and production should be starting soon. And same with Berlin, the new Tesla factory in Berlin. They've got a few test cars rolling around.
How much of progress do you think they'll make by calendar year end? Do you think they'll be making very many of them?
Well, with the if it's similar to the China factory for Tesla, they should make 150,000 at each factory this year.
Okay, well that's significant. It'll help. Next year, look out though. Via CNN, India's wealthiest coal tycoon is planning to invest $80 billion in green energy. Reliance Industries, India's largest company, announced on Thursday that it will be investing $80.6 billion in green energy projects in the state of Gujarat, according to CNN. CEO Mukesh Ambani, whose father founded the company, has conceded in recent years that the company has no choice but to go green by helping fund the transition to a low-carbon future. Good news story, Brian, when that happens.
That's fantastic.
At least they're getting it. The people around here in oil country, not getting it. Some people in the world are getting it, and guess what? They're going to make some money doing it. And their people that they serve are going to make some money. The governments who get it will make some money, like putting up wind turbines and making money off them. Teslarati is reporting that with a boost from cars like Tesla Model 3 and the Model Y, that China is actually well ahead of its 2025 EV target of 20% nationwide penetration. They've met it in 2022. They're going to meet it. They're on target to meet it. So I'd like to see that. China perhaps was a bit...
We keep seeing these deadlines move up.
China was a bit modest perhaps on their... not ambitious enough. I wish they would get their act together and shoot for the moon on this, because I think it's good for them and I think it's good for their people. From Renew Economy, South Australia, population 1.8 million, ran for a week on 100% renewable energy, a record for similar energy grids anywhere. And, people are always saying, well, we can't, renewables can't run on 100%. Grids can't run on 100% renewable. We can never decarbonize the world. And different jurisdictions, it's happened in parts of the UK. They've done it. And parts of Europe and now Australia. So it happens on windy weeks and things like that.
And happening more every single week.
2 Tesla EVs have broken into the top 20 selling vehicles in the United States in 2021. So if you look at the top selling cars, you'll see a couple of Teslas in there.
Yeah, it's no longer just EV market share. They're now eating into overall automotive market share.
And that means things are moving fast in our little world here, Brian, that we cover. From Carbon Tracker, Yorkshire-based Third Energy was at a forefront of UK fracking efforts, but was hampered by permit delays and fierce local opposition. Now the company's been taken over by Wolfland Group, a renewable energy company, which has an anti-fracking campaigner as its director. Hilarious! Good climate news to end the show this week from Asad Razuk. Slovenia is to exit coal by 2033. Dutch activists are to take 30 multinational corporations to court to cut emissions. A German steelmaker, another one, is going to shift to 100% green steel. Chechnya in 2033 is phasing out coal. And European Court of Human Rights takes up Norway Arctic drilling case, which is great news. And finally, Denmark is to make internal flights fossil-free. I cannot talk. Denmark is to make internal flights. I cannot say it, Brian. I cannot finish the show. It will never end if I cannot say this. Denmark to make internal flights fossil-free by 2030. I am not a linguist. That is our time for this week. I thank you all for joining us. Consider rating and reviewing our show on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get our podcasts. And we'll see you here next week for another discussion of clean energy and transportation and how the world is changing.
See you next week.